Your friend who makes roughly the same salary as you just posted a picture of his new lake house. Not a mansion, just a clean little A-frame on the water, with a dock and a kayak tied to the side. And you're sitting there on your couch, in your apartment, scrolling past it, doing math in your head that doesn't add up. You went to the same college, started working the same year. You probably make within a few $1,000s of each other. But somehow, he's building a life that looks completely different from yours. And the worst part? He doesn't seem stressed about it. He's not grinding 80-hour weeks. He's not flipping crypto. He's not posting hustle quotes at 5 a.m. He just made different choices somewhere along the way. And now, the gap between your two lives is getting wider every single year. You can feel it, even if you can't explain it. I've spent the better part of 3 years studying the habits, decisions, and financial behaviors of over 1,000 self-made millionaires. Not tech founders, not trust fund kids, not people who got lucky on one bet. Regular people who built 7-figure net worths on normal incomes in normal cities with normal jobs. And the single most consistent pattern I found wasn't something they started doing. It was something they stopped. Every single one of them, at some point, quit performing. They stopped optimizing for the appearance of wealth and started building the quiet machinery of actual wealth. And I need you to understand, those two things are almost never happening inside the same life at the same time. I call this the performance fallacy. The belief that if your life looks right on the outside, the money will eventually follow. It won't. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how this plays out by following two people through the same 10-year window. Same city, same starting income, same education. Radically different outcomes. Their names are Kyle and Nate. College roommates. Graduated the same year, got hired at similar companies. Both started earning around $65,000. By every measurable standard, they were dead even. But 10 years later, one of them owns property, has a 6-figure investment portfolio, and sleeps through the night. The other has a nicer car, a better wardrobe, and a negative net worth. Let's start with Kyle, because honestly, Kyle is most of us. Kyle is the guy everyone assumes is doing well. Sharp dresser, always has the latest phone. His apartment is in the trendy part of town. Exposed brick, rooftop access, the works. When you scroll through his social media, everything looks dialed in. Weekend brunches, concert tickets, a gym membership at one of those places with eucalyptus towels and a juice bar in the lobby. And here's what makes Kyle's story painful. He's not irresponsible. He's not blowing money at casinos or racking up debt on things he doesn't use. He genuinely believes he's making smart decisions. He leases a new car every 3 years because he thinks owning is a waste. He eats out most nights because he says his time is worth more than cooking. He upgrades his apartment every time he gets a raise because he believes you should live at your level. Kyle reads financial advice. He knows he should be investing. But every time he sits down to set up an automatic transfer, the numbers just don't work. After rent, the car payment, subscriptions, dining, and all the little lifestyle expenses that feel non-negotiable, there's almost nothing left. So he tells himself, next year, when I get that promotion, when I'm finally making 6 figures, then I'll start building wealth for real. And you've probably told yourself some version of that same story. I know I have. Here's the thing about Kyle's situation. Every purchase, every upgrade, every decision filters through one unconscious question. Does this make me look like I'm winning? And the brutal part is, it works. People genuinely think Kyle is successful. His parents brag about him. His coworkers assume he's ahead. The feedback loop is constant and positive, which makes the behavior almost impossible to question. Why would you stop doing something that everyone around you is rewarding you for? But underneath the surface, Kyle's net worth hasn't moved in years. He has a modest amount in his 401k because his company auto-enrolled him. He has almost no liquid savings and every unexpected expense. A medical bill, a car repair, a friend's destination wedding goes on a credit card that he promises to pay off next month, but never quite does. Kyle isn't lazy. He isn't stupid. He's doing exactly what every car commercial, every Instagram ad, every "you deserve this" marketing campaign trained him to do since he was 14. He's the perfect consumer. And perfect consumers don't build wealth. They fund other people's wealth. 3 years in, Kyle gets his first big raise. He's now making about $80,000. This is the moment he told himself everything would change. And for about 2 weeks, it does. He feels the breathing room. He even moves a few $100s into a savings account. But then the recalibration kicks in. Kyle's been eyeing a nicer apartment closer to downtown. The rent is steeper, but he justifies it. Shorter commute, better neighborhood. He deserves this. He signs the lease. Within a month, his expenses have expanded to perfectly match his new income. The raise evaporated before it ever had a chance to compound. And here's your first real takeaway, because I don't want to wait until the end to give you something useful. If you've ever gotten a raise and felt like nothing changed, that's not bad luck. That's the performance fallacy eating your future in real time. The fix is stupidly simple. The next time your income goes up by any amount, you take at least half of that increase and redirect it into an investment account before you ever adjust your lifestyle. You set up the transfer the same week you get the raise letter, before you have time to deserve something new, before the recalibration kicks in. That one move, repeated across 3 or 4 raises, is worth more than any stock pick or side hustle you'll ever find. Back to Kyle. This pattern repeats at year 5, and again at year 7. Every single income increase gets absorbed by a lifestyle upgrade that feels earned and reasonable in the moment. A better car. A vacation that costs just a little more than last year's. Kyle's income has grown significantly over the decade, but his savings rate has barely moved. Some years it's actually gone backward. By year 8, Kyle starts feeling a strange anxiety he can't quite name. He's making good money. His life looks great. But there's this low-grade dread humming underneath everything. He avoids checking his full financial picture. He changes the subject when friends talk about investments. He tells himself he's not a numbers person, even though he graduated with honors. The truth is, he's terrified that if he actually added it all up, the number would break the story he's been telling himself. And here's what nobody tells you about Kyle's path. The decade between 25 and 35 is the most mathematically powerful wealth-building window of your entire life. Every dollar invested during that stretch has the longest runway to compound. Miss that window, and you're not just behind. You're playing a fundamentally different game with fundamentally worse math. By year 10, Kyle is earning 6 figures. His combined net worth, retirement account minus debts, is roughly $45,000. That's less than a new Toyota Camry. He spent a decade of professional work and has less to show for it than a car that depreciates the second you drive it off the lot. But Kyle doesn't know that number because he's never actually added it all up. He just knows that the lake house his college roommate posted about feels like a personal accusation. Now let's talk about Nate. And I need you to resist the urge to turn Nate into a hero, because Nate isn't heroic. Nate is boring. That's the whole point. In the early years, if you put Kyle and Nate side by side, you'd bet on Kyle every single time. Nate drives a used Honda that's old enough to vote. His apartment is fine. Clean, functional, forgettable. He shops at thrift stores not because it's trendy, but because he genuinely doesn't care about brands. At parties, nobody asks Nate what he does for a living, because nothing about him signals that the answer would be interesting. But here's what Nate figured out early, something that took me studying 1,000 millionaires to confirm. He realized that the appearance of wealth and the accumulation of wealth are competing priorities. Every dollar that goes toward looking successful is a dollar that can't go toward becoming successful. And in your 20s and 30s, when compound interest is the most powerful force available to you, that trade-off is catastrophic. Nate made his choice. Nate's first move after getting hired wasn't upgrading his lifestyle. It was setting up an automatic transfer. Every payday, before he could see the money, before he could feel it, before he could talk himself out of it, a chunk disappeared into a total market index fund at Vanguard. Not a heroic amount, just enough to sting slightly. Enough that he occasionally had to say no to a dinner out or a weekend trip. And the key to Nate's approach wasn't willpower. It was decision elimination. He automated everything. He didn't wake up every morning choosing to be responsible. He set up the system once and then forgot about it. His rent was modest enough that even in a rough month, the transfers still cleared. He built what I'd call a quiet engine, a wealth-building machine that ran in the background of a perfectly ordinary life. When Nate got a raise, he didn't change a single visible thing about his life. Not the apartment, not the car, not the restaurants. He just bumped the automatic transfer. The raise flowed straight into the engine. His daily experience stayed exactly the same, which meant he never developed a taste for a more expensive life. There was no appetite to manage, no willpower required. But I want to be honest about something, because if I paint Nate as this perfectly zen monk who never questioned his choices, I'd be lying to you. Year 4, Nate almost broke. His girlfriend at the time wanted them to move in together, into a nicer place downtown, something that felt like adults. And Nate scrolled through Kyle's Instagram that week, saw the rooftop apartment, the weekend trips, the effortless looking life, and for the first time in years thought, am I wasting my 20s being responsible for a future I can't even see yet? That doubt was real. It sat in his chest for weeks. He almost signed a lease that would have doubled his rent. But then he opened his brokerage account. Not to check the number, to check the trajectory. And he saw that curve. The one that had been crawling in a straight line for 3 years was finally starting to bend upward. His money was making money. Not a lot yet, but it was real, and it was accelerating. And he made the hardest decision of his 20s. He chose the curve over the apartment. The relationship didn't survive it. And Nate spent the next 6 months wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake. He didn't, but he didn't know that yet. And that uncertainty is the part nobody talks about. The quiet engine doesn't send you push notifications that say you're doing the right thing. It just runs, silently, while everyone around you is getting applause for decisions that are slowly bankrupting them. By year 7, the engine starts to roar. Nate's portfolio crosses into 6 figures. He's still driving the Honda, still in a modest apartment, though he moved once to a slightly bigger place for a home office. His lifestyle has crept up maybe 10% total over 7 years. The gap between what he earns and what he spends has become a canyon. And everything that falls into that canyon turns into wealth. And here's what surprises people. Nate doesn't feel deprived. He's not walking around white-knuckling through life. That's the misconception about this path. People think it requires monk-like discipline every single day. It doesn't. It required discipline once, the day he set up the systems. After that, it just required not dismantling them. His desires stayed calibrated to a life that cost far less than he earned. And that's not deprivation. That's freedom. The kind of freedom Kyle's nice apartment will never provide. So how do you actually become Nate if you've been living like Kyle? And I want to be real with you. This isn't a budgeting app. It's not a 5-step morning routine. It's a fundamental shift in what you're optimizing for. But I can give you 2 things you can do this week that will matter more than anything else. First, you have to identify your performance expenses. Pull up your last 3 months of spending and ask yourself one uncomfortable question about each recurring cost. Would I still pay for this if nobody ever knew about it? Would you still be in that apartment if nobody ever came over? Would you still drive that car if nobody ever saw you in it? Would you still wear those brands if you worked from home permanently? You don't have to answer out loud, but you have to answer honestly. Most people I studied found that somewhere between a quarter and a third of their monthly spending existed to maintain an image, not to increase their actual quality of life, just to keep the performance running. Second, open a brokerage account. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, doesn't matter. Set up an automatic transfer for every payday. Put it in a total market index fund. Start with whatever amount makes you slightly uncomfortable. Not devastated, not heroic, just enough that you notice it. Then, don't touch it. Don't check it daily. Don't second guess it. That's the entire strategy that built more millionaires than crypto, real estate flipping, and day trading combined. It's so boring that nobody makes viral content about it, which is exactly why it works. And here's the hard part, the part that isn't about money at all. You have to let people be wrong about you. Kyle's entire financial identity is built on external validation. Every time someone compliments his apartment or his car, that's a hit of dopamine that reinforces the performance. Nate doesn't get those hits. Nobody's impressed by Nate's Honda. Nobody's talking about Nate's wardrobe. And that silence is the price of the quiet engine. You have to become comfortable being underestimated. You have to be okay with your parents wondering if you're doing all right. You have to survive the dinner where your friend talks about his kitchen renovation and you have nothing equivalent to offer. Because what you're building doesn't photograph well. It doesn't post well. It doesn't impress anyone at a party. But it compounds. Every single day it compounds. And the applause Kyle gets, that doesn't compound. It just costs more every year. The opinion of other people is the most expensive thing you will ever pay for. So here's where we land. Kyle and Nate started in the same dorm room, same degree, same starting salary, same economy, same job market, same access to the same information. 10 years later, one of them has a lake house and a portfolio that works while he sleeps. The other has a closet full of nice things and a knot in his stomach every time he opens his banking app. The difference wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't some secret investment strategy. The difference was one decision, made early and reinforced quietly every single day. Nate quit the performance. Kyle never did. That's the entire study condensed into one sentence. 1,000 millionaires, 1,000 different industries, 1,000 different backgrounds. And the one thing they all shared was the moment they decided that building something real mattered more than building something impressive. So here's your choice, and it is a choice. One you're making right now, whether you realize it or not. You can keep upgrading, keep signaling, keep waiting for the raise that finally makes the math work. Or you can do what every single millionaire in this study eventually did. Quit the performance, build the engine, and let the next 10 years actually count. The compound interest doesn't care what you drive, and the audience you're performing for isn't paying your bills.